Hello and welcome to the Cinque F1 Esports Championship. Today you join us for a rainy session, round one, here at the Red Bull Ring. Today we'll be initiating the championship. It's been a long time coming. We've had 2 pre-season testing sessions already, and so I think everyone's relieved to finally get this thing going. My name's Yannis Mer, and I will be commentating for you guys today. As our first drivers hit the track. 17 minutes of qualifying. And I don't think anyone was expecting the amount of rain out on circuit today. Even just chugging along into turn 2, you can see the amount of spray thrown up by N-Tile's gold and black F1 car. Now, if this is your first time joining us, this is a very interesting format. It's going to be about 16, 18 minutes of qualifying, no practice session, and once qualifying ends, it will be half race length. So this is really quite quick, but it means that we get lots of action down in a really quick time. So, N-Tile coming through turns 6, 7 and 8 now into the final sector. He will be starting his flying lap the moment he crosses that start line. Now everyone except Panda and Dam are out on their laps as N-Tile starts the first flying lap. Just how cautious he is coming over that curb on the right hand side of turn 1. It's very aggressive, that corner, and so if you get the curbs wrong and you hit the sausage on either the inside or the outside, especially in the rain, you're gonna spin. We've seen real F1 drivers struggle with this. The drivers that are at the top struggle with this even in the dry weather, so I can't imagine how tricky this must be for these guys in the rain. Staying off the left curb. N-Tile is making good progress around the track, coming in through sector 2 now. And we have a caution, sector 3. Let me actually bring up the circuit map so we can all have a look at what's going on everywhere. Just past the pit lane now. N-Tile about to set the first lap. Oh! And that's N-Tile spun just on the final corner. It was going to be a proper flying lap, but unfortunately he just missed out right at the end. So this then is Arjan Pagadala, 116.7, one of 3 drivers to set a time. Of course, N-Tile managed to keep his lap validated, which just means he hasn't gone off track, but it does mean he has set a very slow time in comparison to the rest. It's not an issue though. He's still got 14 minutes of qualifying left as the rest of the drivers start to set their first lap times. Mormon's also struggling slightly with a 126.1. Sector 3, there's a slow moving car. Unfortunately, because we only do have 8 drivers out here today, there isn't too much traffic around the circuit, so these drivers should be able to set some pretty decent lap times, although considering it is rainy, could still prove quite a challenge. That is a very stationary car. Oh, and they've spun at turn 1. 1 or 2 drivers going round and round. We've now got 6 laps in. Sean bringing up the rear with a 128. And we are now following Panda 9303. Don't worry, I won't be saying all these names all the time because I understand how annoying that would be. But Panda still to set a lap. Oh, and you can see how cautious he is over those curbs. Cautious he is applying that throttle. Dam also has yet to set a lap. He's just come through turn 3. Sector 2, that's slightly Panda. It's more, maybe he's going to trip into the grass this time. Now I have noticed quite an interesting thing. Almost everywhere, the drivers seem to be locking up their tyres consistently, which is just like that. And he goes round again. It's I can't imagine it must be very good for the tyres. However, because we only are running about 18 minutes of quali and then half race length, I don't think it matters too much how much wear the tyres get. Although that said, we are in the rain, so it's unlikely that pit stops will be occurring. Oh, and Pagadala just increases his lead, improving to 115.9. And he is still going, he's still improving on his lap time. Sector 1 improving by 15 hundredths. He continues to push with more stationary cars on track. There's one stationary in the background there. Looks like Panda finally set a valid lap time of 139.7, but we still have another yellow in Sector 2. This then is Pagadala trying to set another lap time. He's up another 2/10 from his best, getting all out of shape out of turn 7 though. Not sure how that will affect his lap time. Up onto the left curb, through the final corner. Oh, a bit out of shape there as well. But does he improve? Yes, he does, by 2/10. Brilliant performance from the driver on provisional pole.
Unsafe re-entry on car 29, noted.
You can hear the stewards applying the penalties, or just, you know, being aware of the incidents going on around the track. So we'll be getting live updates throughout the race and qualifying for any penalties that might be applied and stuff like that. So, Irby, as we called him during pre-season testing, Long Simon Irby is what his name seems to be going for, but we'll just call him Irby. He's already up by 1.1 seconds from his previous time, so he's looking to improve. Oh, but is that an invalidated lap time? I'm not sure, as he wrestles the car through the final section. And no, he's managed to keep it valid. Irby taking a 116.5. He's still just under a second of Pagadala ahead. Aka 1909 in P3. We'll be following him now to see whether he manages to improve on his lap time. He's up, well, sorry, he's down 3/10 on his previous lap in terms of not going well. Plus 0.330 seconds, as we saw on the right hand side of your screen. That's the timing screen. So he'll really need to pull it together through the final section, or he's just taking a nice easy lap and then going to push the next couple. 8 minutes left in qualifying as the lap times start pulling together. Entile bringing up the rear of a closely matched couple lap times at 17.9, and Aka 17.2 is 7/10 ahead of Entile when it comes to lap time. Coming across the line, Aka does manage to improve his time despite being 3/10 off of his time in the first sector of the track. Is now at 16.6, so Entile is going to need to close that gap. Pagadala, meanwhile, just continues to plough on. one way. Magadala getting into the pits now though. He's done his job, he's on provisional pole. So now it's back into the pits for, I don't think you'll really need fresh tyres as such.
Race control, unsafe re-entry on car 29, under investigation.
Car 29 under investigation for unsafe entry. And I can imagine in the rain, that's definitely going to be an issue for some of our drivers. We now go on board with Dam, who's really been struggling all session long now. 10 minutes he's been out on track and he still has not managed to set a valid lap time. But there it is, a 1:35.1. He's managed to set the time ahead of Panda. Now really, I should really come up with nicknames for these guys, because obviously reading their username is going to be quite annoying, I can imagine, trying to read the whole thing. Pugadala in P1, Aka P2, Irby P3, Ental P4, Mormons P5, Sean P6, Dam P7, and Panda P8. That's what I'll call them. Just we'll classify that as a sentence, because obviously it is quite nice, you know, seeing these interesting gamer tags. I'm not used to it, but it'll definitely make the call out a little interesting. And that was one of the drivers ahead, just pulling out of the way just to make space for the incoming car of Dam. Looks to be a little more on pace now. Coming through the final section, does he manage to make a position on Sean? Because 7 seconds is a lot, 1:35 is slow. And there's Dam making 2 positions on Mormons now with a 1:20.5. Good improvement from that blue and black car. Aka is back out, maybe hunting for that pole position. His best lap so far has been 1:15.719. Moving into the second section now. He only needs to make about 5/10, that's half a second. On the limit all the way through. Into sector 3 now he comes, up by a 10th, so he'll need to make 4/10ths by the end of the lap in order to take provisional pole. Coming into the final section now, the penultimate corner, turn 9, now into turn 10. He's really pushing the limits there. Is it pole? No, but he has managed to improve his time by almost a 10th.
Race control, no further action.
So no further action taken against car 29 on an unsafe entry. Looking to improve on his time. He's currently sitting there with an 18.8, so he still needs to improve by just over a second in order to make a position. It looks like we do have a yellow sector 1, and that's a car off on the exit of turn 1. The times look fairly static at the moment. Pagadala still a 15.2, Aka a 15.6, Irby 16.5 as our top 3 of 8 drivers. Sector 2 seems to be locked up as Mormons was stationary there for a moment. Seems like he's had a little adventure with the wall or been very close to the wall, but he's back up and running now. So it's good to see him back out on track doing some laps. Currently P7. Now everyone is out on track except for Dam, Panda and Pagadala. Those three drivers in P1, P5 and P6. So now my question is, will Entile be able to improve on his time? Because he's been struggling with the session so far. We've only got 2 minutes left, so if he wants to make a difference, he's going to need to put in a whole load of effort. His time is currently at 17.3, so if he wants to improve, he'll need to do it by just under a second. Oh, and that was a car coming past, but I think Entile has taken the safe route. He's just come into the pits, and he's decided I will not be doing any further laps. Now, who still is out is going to be Aka and Irby. Aka off by 0.4 seconds and Irby off by just over a second. So we're on board now with Aka for his final lap by the looks of things. Through sector 1 he's 1.6 seconds off the pace. I don't think he'll be setting any legendary lap times, unfortunately. Irby at the moment P3, also looking to improve. He's been stuck there for a little while. But he's also 0.2 off of his best time so far. Rotated there, even though we are under slippery conditions. Now the question is, does he improve and take P2? No, he doesn't. In fact, he actually only improves his time by 0.2, but he is still 0.7 off of Aka, just ahead. But I think we're going to be seeing our final couple of laps now of Aka, Irby, Entile and Dam out there on track. Apologies, Entile I think is not on track. It was just something on there. And the drivers now have 3 minutes to put in their final lap times before the end of the session. It is the end, granted, but as in officially the end where drivers need to, this is their final lap. So Irby then, one of the 2 final drivers to set his lap time. Coming into sector 3 now, he's 1.2 seconds off of his best. So, whoa, and a big moment, sliding his way through turn 7 and 8. And that, I think, is the end of his lap. Unfortunately, it looks like Irby is done for the session. Now, Dam is still out there, trying to set a lap, but he's the only one out on track at the moment, and I think that his time has been permanently set, so he won't be able to improve on his time at all. At the moment, he's just going around track, having fun, so we are basically just waiting for Dam to finish his lap before we can get the first race of the season on the way. That then is the end of qualifying. 8 drivers, 8 positions to be had, really, over the course of the next race. Pagadala taking a comfortable pole position from Aka, and then Irby picking up P3. Of course, Sean and Warmans were struggling to set their laps, as well as Dan, so they'll be looking to make improvements during the next couple minutes of the race. And you join us now for the first race of the Cinque F1 Esports Championship here at the Red Bull Ring. The downpour that occurred during qualifying has all but dried up now, so our drivers will be racing on a dry, clean track. Now, we did see some relatively alright competition between the drivers both at the top and at the bottom, but that was in the wet, and the wet tends to separate drivers when it comes to skill level, especially for the drivers at the bottom who maybe do not have as much experience. But here we go, the 5 lights come on. And the green flag waves at the Red Bull Ring as our drivers get on the way, and there's a spin at the back of the pack already. Pagadala into P1, Aka just defending from Irby as best he can, and looks like everyone except the driver at the back has managed to make it through turn 1 unscathed. Coming into turn 3, there's a couple moves, oh my goodness, and Irby's off track with Aka colliding straight into the back of him. And Aka has given that position back, so not too much damage done. But the drivers have already started. Just, oh my goodness, and there's lockups everywhere. Irby's gone wide, and I have no idea who's just gone wide. That looks like Ormans has gone wide as well. Everyone struggling to get grip through that right-hander of turn 4. But Pagadala then, with an early lead, 2.6 seconds. Panda, 1.2 seconds off of Aka now. And Irby is just 0.4 seconds. Here's Ental now on Sean, down the inside into turn 9. And it's a beautiful move, easily done. And that's Ental up into P5. Easy pickings for the gold and black car. You can hear the sound of DRS opening. This now is Irby trying to make a move on Panda. He's down the outside into turn 3. Oh, but he's locked up and he's gone wide. And that allows Irby... Now, hang on. Looks like Irby's still... Oh, hang on. 1 second. So that was Irby trying to make an overtake on Ental. He got the move done. But it's a massive lock-up, and that's Irby into the gravel. That's allowed Ental up into P3. He takes the final podium position away. Another little lock-up there. So these two drivers battle it now for the final position on the podium. We are on board with Irby. It looks like Ental made the most of that situation down at turn 3. Apologies, turn 4, just through that right-hander, and he is running away with it now. Just that consistency, just hitting every corner absolutely perfectly. Now behind is Panda making a move on Sean. Sean's dropping down the order. This is now Panda down the inside into turn 1. And he gets the move done. But this is going to be interesting because Panda's got a little bit of a run coming down into turn 3. He's having a look. But he's not managed to get past, even as Panda had a DRS. Sean had a little bit of a run, which is really quite interesting to see. But here he comes now, down the inside, into turn 4. They're side by side, and that's Sean with an insane run down the inside. But now it's the switchback. Panda taking back P5. Close racing between the two for P4. Panda's gone wide. This is now Sean's opportunity to come past, but he's blocked on the entry. Irby positioning his car right in the middle of the track, and this is the closest gap between these two. Oh my goodness, and that's Panda, who spun out on the exit of turn 10. And Sean's up then into P5. And Panda's dropping down the order as Mormons also takes advantage of that situation. And just up ahead, this is Irby making a move on Entile around the outside into turn 3. He hasn't managed to get it done, but on the acceleration, who's going to get ahead? Looks like it's Irby that manages to get the move done, and he's ahead by the time they hit the right hand of turn 4. Entile having a look down the inside, huge lockup from the both of them, and it's the gold car of Entile now looking to make a position at some point as they battle through turn 6 and 7 and they collide. Now Irby's already got a 10-second penalty for a collision that he sustained earlier, so Entile might have the same thing, and 10 seconds in a half distance race is quite a big, that's quite a large window for drivers to stay in. Usually if it's something like an endurance race where the times change all the time and it's, you know, at the end of a race you might be 2 or 3 laps behind other drivers, usually the penalties there tend to not really make too much of a difference. Oh, and there's a big lock-up from both of them coming through turn 3, and Entile's into the barrier! Entile's parked it on the exit of turn 3. Drivers all over the track now, colliding with each other and spinning out as they try and get used to these new conditions. Sean making good use of that parked orange car. So Sean then up into P4 as Entile drops now. And looks like Mormons is off as well in sector 2. Looks like drivers are struggling to take turn 4 at a consistent pace. So that means Mormons has now dropped another position. I just saw Panda within a second for a moment and then suddenly swap positions. Looks like Cold and Dam have just also swapped positions. There's another yellow flag in turn 1, but I suspect that's just software issues. But we do have a car currently parked on the exit, and that's Panda moving slowly. I'm not sure whether he's maybe spun or whether he's hit the wall or something, but Panda is also struggling out there. Very good pace, consistent pace compared to the other drivers, and he'll be making a move on Sean within the next couple turns, maybe sets it up for a pass into turn 1 when he gets the DRS. Coming to the final section now is definitely close enough for that advantage. Has a look down the inside into turn 9. It's a very ambitious overtake, but he gets it done. That's Entile up into P4. He's got some pace, but I don't think he has the consistency of Entile. As I say that, Entile locks up huge into turn 3, and Sean does have the DRS, but at the moment he can't take advantage of that at the moment. And at this point in time, the grid starts to expand in terms of their timings. Pugadala 5 seconds ahead of Akka 21 seconds ahead of Irby, and then Entile 8 seconds. Sean just outside his second. Mormons 12 seconds, Panda 10, Cold 9 seconds, and Dam 8 seconds. But looks like Panda has had another incident. He's just had a slow exit from turn 3. And could this be the first lap of the race in terms of, you know, leaders coming to lap slower cars? Yes, it is. There we go. Panda has not been overtaken by Dam, who's still 1.2, 1.3 seconds behind. This is Dam, who we've just seen make a big correction on the exit of turn 6, but he'll be looking to hunt down Panda ahead. He's just within 2 seconds, so he'll be getting DRS very soon. Oh my goodness, and that's Panda almost into the wall. This is Dam's opportunity under acceleration on the exit of turn 3, and he's made it up into P8 now, taking advantage of Panda's little incident. But he's gone wide now at turn 4 into the gravel, and Panda takes back P8. And Dam just struggling at the moment, struggling to keep that car on track both in the dry and the wet. His race seems to be slowing down now, and unfortunately that gap has gone back up to about 6 seconds between Panda and Dam, P8 and P9.
Race control. 5-second penalty on car 8. Collision with car 9.
Penalties are starting to flow. We've got, well, when I say flow, it's just getting started. Usually when I say that, it tends to be about 3 or 4 or 5 penalties come through simultaneously, and then we've got drive-throughs and the other stuff on top of that. So yeah, you know, one penalty's not too bad, but considering it is only a 9-car grid, that means 1 in 9 cars. So I mean, technically you could say it is quite a large gap, isn't it? Dam then trying to close that gap ahead to Panda. He's 3.7 seconds off now. But once again, he's struggling to keep that car on track. He's gone board with Panda just ahead. He's also struggling for pace today. Keeps growing, but the gap behind to Dam is decreasing. Oh, and Panda's into the wall on the exit of the final corner, and that's Dam just flying by now. Panda into the wall on the exit of turn 10. There's also a slow car just ahead. This is going to be Mormons. That was Mormons ahead. Just wow, drivers are making a couple mistakes through we're almost a third of the race, so can't really say halfway. 20 minutes into the race, shall we say, lap 11. It's about a third of the race, and yeah, things have started heating up at the back now. 4 seconds between Mormons and Dam, then another 4 seconds between Dam and Panda. Consistent time difference between these drivers. It'll be interesting to see whether Mormons can gap Dam. He's already up by about 4.8, almost 5 seconds. But Panda's doing well to claw back that time from Dam. But to be honest, Dam seemed to have pretty good pace overall, trying to make up that gap to Panda when he was P9. So really for these guys, it's all about trying to minimise the mistakes, minimise spin-outs, minimise the collisions, the crashes, stuff like that, minimise the penalties. Mormon's trying to just get a little greedy on the throttle, perfectly illustrating exactly what I was saying a little earlier. He's really trying to use all of that curb. Looks like there's been a change of position between Dam and Panda. Looks like Dam has had a bad exit out of turn 1, going through turn 3 now, and there's a brilliant exit from Dam out of the exit, and that's Dam up into P8. like Irby's gone round. Irby's round on the exit of turn 3. So even our drivers at the top are making these simple mistakes. This is going to be Sean now coming past. Sean makes it up into P4. Irby was performing so consistently and so well for the first section of the race, the first 10 laps or so. He was performing really consistently. We saw some good action, and this is cold potential. No, that wasn't cold coming by, apologies. That was one of the back markers. So this has got to be Panda just coming past, but Irby now down to P5. He was running in the podium positions. Now on top of that, he's still got the 10-second time penalty, which will either be oh my goodness, and there's a car facing the wrong direction. I'm not sure who that is, and that looks to be Dam. Dam has just retired from the session there and then, facing the wrong direction. Now we're down to 8 drivers. Irby then comes into pit with a really slow pit entry to use the first one to get the tyres changed. But of course he's got that 10-second time penalty that he needs to serve, where the drivers are waiting really, where the pit crew can't do anything for 10 seconds. There we go. Now they get that tyre change down. So Pagadala continues to lead, but Irby loses out to Cold in that pit stop, but he's still ahead of Panda by the time he gets to the exit. This is Panda at the moment, so yeah, he's still another 2 corners behind. As you can see, he's almost a minute behind now, with Mormons 15 seconds. Panda coming in now for his pit stop. And so the closest gap at the end of all that is going to be between Aka and Pagadala. And there's Panda hit with a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So Panda trying to push the limits and try and make up some time. But unfortunately, in doing so, he's just been hit with another penalty, which is fairly light, I think, considering what it usually is in GT3. Usually in GT3, if you speed in the pit lane, you either get a stop and go 30 or you get a drive through. This then is Aka, making it past a slow car. I believe that was Panda. Could be Panda, could be. Yeah, that was Panda. Just behind, and this then is Mormons, who just overtook Panda during the pit stop. So we are on board with Mormons, Panda is 5.96 seconds behind, shall we say. So then, the race standings at the moment is Pagadala, Aka and Ental, our podium drivers, with Sean, Shree to Cold, and Irby bringing up P4, P5, P6, and then Mormons and Panda bringing up the final 2 positions of the race. And we are just about to hit the halfway mark for the race, as Mormons will be looking into his rear view mirror. There's Panda in the back of the shot. 2.5, 2.3 seconds. He's closing that gap to Mormons. Now Mormons, yes, he hasn't been the greatest in terms of race pace, but he's got the consistency that Panda has not had so far. But regardless, Panda is closing that gap now, a second between the two, as they come through the right-hander, and Mormons has had a horrible exit out of there. This is going to be Panda's chance now to take P7. Setting up for a pass into turn 1, or will it be a pass into turn 3? And yes, there's the exit from Panda, being slightly, but oh my goodness, and they both collide! Oh, both into the wall. Panda and Mormons coming together on the exit. Mormons coming across, so his front wing's going to be completely destroyed, as Panda's. Panda with an extreme overtake, and he's gone straight on. Mormons and Panda having a huge battle for P7. Meanwhile, Bagadala has just come out of the pit. That's him just there. The white car, and he is still 4.5 seconds ahead of Acker. I think has also just gone into the pits. He's donned a new set of tyres. So Panda and Mormons then having a huge battle for P7, culminating in contact between each other and contact with the wall as well. So Panda will be looking to close that gap once again, 1.8 seconds, but we've seen how quickly that can close. And Panda struggling slightly over the curbs as the rest of the grid stays fairly normal. Ental and Sean have both come in for their pit stops. And at the same location they collided, well, almost collided last time, but they've managed to keep it on track now, and Panda with the DRS moving by. And we've got some front runners trying to make it through, and Panda and Mormons just can't keep their hands off each other. Panda and Mormons once again coming together, but Panda's managed to make the position stick. He's up into P7. Now Cole's also come into the pits. Panda's obviously been hit with his penalty. I'm not sure whether Mormons has pitted yet. Let's check. So in terms of positions, Ental's made a position. The driver who's gained the most throughout the race is Sean, up 4 positions from where he started. So he started P8. We saw how much he struggled during qualifying, and the biggest loser then out of these is obviously going to be Dam, who's retired from the race. But for drivers that are actually still out on track, Irby and Panda have both had the same in terms of, I don't know, damage to their starting positions, if you will. Now in terms of pit stops, everyone except Mormons have done a pit stop, and considering it is now halfway into the race, these drivers are most likely going to be doing a one-stop pit stop, except potentially for Irby, who's on a soft tyre compound. If he can make that last, then good, but considering what we were seeing earlier when it comes to consistency and tyre wear and just the way he drives in terms of the aggression, I'm not sure that's going to last. Of course, penalties. Panda, who we're following at the moment, has a 10-second time penalty for the for speeding in the pit lane. So really, if he can stay ahead of Mormons, then he'll be fine. But Mormons, yeah, he seemed quite strong at the start, but he's really struggling now. He's dropped 30 seconds behind Panda.
Race control, ignoring a yellow flag, noted.
So yellow flags going out on circuit, and some drivers not noticing it, and yeah, it gets picked up by race control. Who will, you know, even if there isn't a collision or anything, it's still just the principles behind it. And most likely, the reason they picked it up is because there was almost a collision. Of course, it is very dangerous just coming into a section of the racetrack where they're warning you, be careful, and you're the one that almost caused the collision. You know, they pick up on that, and you don't try and be smart, or you know, just be careful. Yellow flags go out, be careful. That's it. So our standings are fairly uniform now. 34, 35 seconds. There's a slow car on the exit of turn 1. We'll see who that is now. So the gap between Sean and Irby has come down a considerable amount. lap so far. He has been improving. And so has Irby, to be honest. He was about 7 seconds, and he looks to be closing that gap. Looks like Sean just had enough coming through the third sector. Coming up on the start straight now. He's just been trying to hang on in there 7 seconds, and there's Irby coming into the pits now. Of course, Irby was on the softer tyre compound, which means he probably wouldn't have made it to the end. So that's Irby's pit stop done, and he's still ahead of Cold, just about. Here comes Cold now, down the straight. And Irby manages just to keep it ahead of Cold as he comes out of the pits, and I swear the weather has just taken a slight turn. It's starting to get slightly cloudy, slightly damp potentially, and the temperatures will probably be dropping. So Irby then on a fresh set of softs. How will that work if the rain comes? It means he'll have had 3 pit stops. So whatever strategy he was going for before, which was already slightly questionable, will be even more, I don't know, will be even more confused now if the rain starts pestering our drivers. But as it is, Cold has not managed to close that gap any further from where it was. It's now holding steady at about 3 seconds, so Irby's just managed to keep hold of P5.
Race control. Ignoring yellow flag. Car A. Under investigation.
So investigations continue for car 8 after going to yellow flags. We talked about that a little earlier. That would bring our penalty tally to about 3 this afternoon or evening or morning if you're somewhere in America. I think that's how the time zones work. It's always a bit challenging trying to coordinate these international sim racing leagues and championships. Acker, interestingly, has closed the gap from about 4 seconds to 3.3. So could that be Pagadala maybe experiencing a little bit of, I don't know, some excessive tyre wear? He was pushing it quite a lot. That gap is now down to about 3.6 seconds, and it was up to 4 seconds before. And just looking at the timing screen, the difference between some of these drivers is incredible in terms of pace. Entile is 1 minute and 6 seconds behind Acker in P2, and then there's also a 1 minute 7 second difference between P7 and P8, Panda and Mormon. So Panda's at least managed to get consistent pace and just keep that gap where it's really comfortable for him, as in very, very comfortable. So he's definitely got that 10-second window if he won't pit again before the end of the race.
Race control. 5-second penalty on car A. Ignoring a yellow flag.
There we go. Investigations come to a conclusion. Car 8. So that'll be 5 seconds. That was F124's very sophisticated system of preventing collisions between lapped drivers. I'm actually kind of disappointed really, because the amount of carnage that can ensue between the drivers who are being lapped and the drivers that are lapping can be really quite incredible to watch. We get another yellow through the second sector, but of course that might just be slightly slow car and exit. as I was saying, in terms of the carnage of drivers lapping others, especially in multi-class endurance racing, yeah, the amount of carnage is just absolutely incredible, but it makes for great watching and great commentary as well. We get stuff to talk about. We get to talk about, you know, whether there's some beef between some of these drivers, whether there's some conflict between them. There is a slow car through section 8, and that was Pagadala. Pagadala's just dropped, and that's Acker up into P1. Pagadala on the exit of turn 8 spun the car, and that's then Acker taking the race lead. Irby's just pit for another set of tyres as well. Cold moving up a position now, and Irby, I'm not sure what's happened, whether he's maybe thinking the rain will be here. And yes, that is rain starting to come onto the circuit now, so the conditions have suddenly changed, and that's Acker into the wall. So Pagadala comes back round to take the lead, and this is going to be the most dangerous part of the race for these drivers now when it comes to car control and just maintaining their car. So really, Irby is the great winner here. Just as the rain starts pouring, he's come into the pits for, I'm hoping, yes, that's a set of intermediates on the car. So he'll have a jump on Cold, who's now 30 seconds ahead. When Cold comes in for the pit stop, Irby will have that advantage. Not just in terms of the undercuts, but in terms of the pace as well. You can see he's on intermediates and he's already slipping all over the place. The gap between Acker and Pagadala is now increased to 7 seconds as Acker comes into the pit, and DRS has been disabled. We've hit that point in the race where the weather has just suddenly changed so quick. You can see the difference in performance now between Cold and Irby when it comes to the tyres. Cold is still on a set of dry tyres. I'm just watching the performance into the braking. Oh my goodness! And that would have been really catastrophic if it hadn't been for the ghosting system. So Irby then up into P5, but he's still got 30 seconds to make on Sean. But if he's got those tyres on and Sean doesn't come into the pits for his set of wets, then we can see that gap come down very quickly. This could be Irby's chance to fight his way back up the grid, and there's Ental and Sean both into the pits for their sets of tyres. And Ental's got a penalty. 10 seconds penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And the last 10 laps of the race bring chaos. And Mormons has just been disqualified from the session for blocking the pit lane. You can see him just standing there, parking there across the pit lane. So Mormons then disqualified from the session. Oh my goodness, there is a lot happening in this final section of the race now. Pagadala's just come in for his pit stop. Ental and Sean also stopped for their tyres. Cold and Panda both now come in, and we have 2 drivers who have either been disqualified or have retired. Hang on, is that Acker making a position on Pagadala? Yes, it is. Pagadala now half a second behind Acker as he rejoins with his tyres now. Both of them on intermediates. Now we saw how good their pace was and how similar they were through the first section on a dry track. How good will it be in the wet? We saw a little bit of that in qualifying. See just how much they're sliding through there, and it's good throttle control from the both of them. Half a second separating Pagadala and Acker, so he'll be within range for the DRS onto the pit straight, and then once more into the second straight leading up to turn 3, that hairpin. So there is potential for some action here between the 2 drivers for the race lead. Pagadala is trying to push, but if he pushes too hard, he's going to get some track limit warnings. And Pagadala has not managed to get he's not managed to improve his time on Acker by the end of the pit straight, but is he close enough for the slipstream? I just remembered now the DRS is disabled. Here's the move from Pagadala down the inside into turn 3. They keep it clean, and just as I say that, the front winglet from Acker almost comes off, but there's Pagadala now down the inside into turn 4. They're side by side. Is Pagadala ahead? Yes, he is. Does he make the corner? Just about. And I believe that's the move done for Pagadala, who takes the race lead. And that position swap happened so quickly, course of 2 corners, and that happened. I couldn't get my stuff done in terms of the DRS. I'd forgotten. Well, yeah, to be honest, I did forget that DRS was disabled. You're just so used to it. Oh my goodness, and there's a car off into the pit wall, I think. And I'm not sure who that is. That looks to be Irby, who's hit the wall, and he's all shaky. And that gap between himself and Sean is still at 3 seconds. Only 5 laps left, and there's a move, I believe, from Pagadala round the outside. He's trying to defend from Acker, and they come together, but Pagadala just keeps it together. Brilliant fighting between these two for the race lead, but I'm sure the stewards are going to have a lot to talk about. There's a slower car just coming through, the others ghosting, as we call it. This then is Pagadala trying to make a move on Acker. As the rain continues to pour down, the conditions continue to worsen. We probably won't see full wets come on. But to be honest, at the end of the race, the conditions should be fairly close to full wet tyre need, if you will. And that was Irby retiring from the session as well. 3 of our 9 drivers retiring. Yes, it is a very small grid, and unfortunately any retirement is a big loss. Pagadala going wide. This is tense, brilliant racing through the final section. Pagadala's got the slipstream, looks to the inside, he sold a little dummy, but unfortunately under braking he's just not managed to get it done. They're very close on the exit. Brilliant racing between these two. It's turn 3, he's got a little bit of slipstream, but unfortunately not enough to get ahead by the time they hit turn 4. That exit must be very tricky indeed. You've got the rain, you've got a slight crest coming mid-corner, and then under the throttle application you've got a little compression. Picking up on those little things can give you the edge. You can see they're trying to stay off the curb as much as possible. Pagadala's made use of it though, coming around the outside into turn 9. It's a very ambitious position in relation to the race leader. Pagadala's just biding his time. Good spatial awareness from the 2 drivers coming through the start of lap 33 now. We only have 3 more laps to go. It started all in chaos. Mid-race was a little quiet, and then now into the final section. This is Pagadala going down the inside of turn 3 for a move. They bang wheels slightly, but it's all clean on the exit, and that's Pagadala up into P1. Beautiful move down the inside. It's not done yet though. Acker looks to be making the position round the outside, and they touch once again. And they're still neck and neck, coming through the long right-hander of turn 5, now into the left-hander of turn 6. Pagadala on the outside. Does he get ahead? They're still battling neck and neck through turn 7. Oh my goodness, this is close racing. It looks like Pagadala has just about managed to wrestle his way up into the race lead. But there's the move from Acker. No, he's not managed to get it done. He was having a look into the penultimate corner, but that's Pagadala then up into the race lead. We saw some contact between these drivers through the second sector. it's Sean up 4 positions, Colt up 4 positions, and then the big loser is unfortunately Irby, and we saw that as he struggled to keep his car on track and he put it into the pit wall. All drivers except Irby have made 2 stops. That was a car sideways across the track. Not sure who that is. The gaps are so large at the moment, it seems almost irrelevant who it was, unfortunately. And yes, all our drivers are on intermediates. All of varying ages though. Irby 8 laps, Acker 8 laps, and the freshest tyres are from Sean and Colt 6 laps. But we're now into the final lap of the race.
Race control, 5-second penalty on car 9, illegal defending.
Illegal defending from car 9. So that could be just moving under braking, changing lines under braking. So I suspect, yeah, that is going to be one of the 2 drivers up the top. But now the conditions change once again. DRS has been re-enabled. But unfortunately it's come just too late for Acker, who's trying to close the gap to Pagadala, but it's opened up to 2.3 seconds now. As he comes around the final couple corners, he's qualified on pole, he's had a couple battles throughout the race, so it hasn't been boring for him, but he takes the checkered flag, and it's Pagadala who wins the Austrian Grand Prix. Acker takes P2, his first podium of the season, and Ental also crosses the line to take P3. Our podium finishes Pagadala, Acker and Ental in a gripping race. And our podium finishes Pagadala, Acker and finally Ental. And those are the results for the first round of the Cinque F1 Esports Championship here at the Red Bull Ring. Changing conditions made it tricky for the drivers in the midfield and the back of the pack to perform well. The drivers at the front managed to keep it consistent. Pagadala finishing P1 from pole, Acker P2. Those 2 drivers are fighting really hard at the end. You can see how close their lap times were. Pagadala taking the fastest lap of the race with 107.188, and we'll be back next week for more, so please do join us at exactly the same time and we'll be doing some more racing. And until then, I bid you adieu. Good night.